morning, good afternoon, wherever you're watching from. Thank you for joining us another luxury masterclass, guys. This week, we love doing this once a month, guys, as we come in. And obviously, Janie has brought the fire again. Obviously, another topic, guys, that everybody needs to know about, needs to hear about, needs to figure out how to introduce into their own business, into their own life. And so we're so excited you guys could join us today. As always, feel free to drop in the YouTube comments where you're watching from. Drop your questions, all that stuff inside of there. I would love to hear from you guys. And Janie, welcome.
Hi. This is my favorite day of the month to be with you guys, so I'm super excited.
All right, so much people walking in, guys, real quick. Welcome, Roger from Central Ohio. I love it. Somebody's checking out from a luxury spa overlooking Manhattan. Isn't that a cool view? Love that. Thanks for joining, guys. Love it.
Pensacola. Awesome. I'm a fellow Floridian. So cool. Well, Jeremy, the reason I wanted to do this training is we have just been like in controlled chaos.
That's a good way to say it.
For a few years in real estate with a lot of different things happening. And of course, it depends on where you are in the world. But between the NAR settlement, between economic situations, between interest rates, between inventory, all these different things, there's just so many different things going on. And sometimes it's not that easy for us to stay calm. But we kind of set the tone for everything, right? And I always say we are kind of in the same position as like a financial planner or a CPA or an attorney with folks, because we're helping them navigate often bigger than what a CPA or an attorney helps them navigate as far as their financial position. But generally speaking, those people don't get uncalm, but we do sometimes as agents. And of course, a lot of that has to do tied in. Our commissions are the way we're paid is directly tied to transactions in a different way. But at the same time, we are that level of a professional. And so my goal here was to give you all some tips, tricks, tactics, mindset shifts, how to maintain calmness and clarity for yourself. And in doing so, help infuse your buyers, sellers, everybody you're working with that same calm clarity that just keeps everything so much better. I've seen so many deals go sideways, not because of the mechanics of the actual deal itself, but because people got hot, right? And didn't make wise decisions. And sometimes they've regretted it.
I'd be interested to hear for those people, guys, that are watching and just tuning into this, have you guys experienced that as well? Because I know I have. I know I've experienced where even me, I've got hot-headed or I've got very frustrated about the situation, and it showed. And it more than just showed. It transferred my frustration onto the client or even onto the buyer or seller side, the agent, right? And so I've had conversations with agents, guys, where it went sideways quick. Like literally my tone shifted everything. And so I think that's a big thing to know is you can control a lot of the future of what happens just by changing tone, attitude, and the words you use. And I think that's a huge element we all had to learn.
Yeah. And like you said, how we interact with our own side will impact how they see, quote, the other side. And that has a lot of, things go sideways all the time. So let me just check the comments, but let's jump on into it because there's a lot to discuss. I'll try to keep my eyes on the comments as well as Jeremy, if we can bring any clarity to you. I have my dog.
I hear the dog. It's like the dog wants to have a comment.
The dog and cat are literally right next to me playing, right next to me. So you just have to live with that part of my presentation. Apologies. Okay, so like I said, why calm clarity right now? The market is changing rapidly. We can't even stay on top of it that much. And so they also feel, if you think about it, we're in this all the time and they're not in it all the time, but things are changing. They're hearing news, people are talking in their ears, things are shifting a lot So we are trying to be kind of that groundedness in the transaction to help bring everybody down to, hey, let's stay calm, let's get clear on what's important to us, and let's see if we can't hold this deal together. Sellers need strategy, not sugarcoating. And this is something that becomes more and more and more the differentiator between us as true professionals versus a yes person. Because yes,
but also, Jane, talking about the sugarcoating thing, how often has that got us in trouble? Like, how often is that? And for me, I'm like, I like to say yes to people, right? I like to make them feel good. I like to be, hey, they like me, right? I like that. But a lot of times that causes big issues when we're not honest and truthful about what happens versus sugarcoating. It's a big difference.
It's a huge difference. And I love analogies, obviously. The analogy I use all the time is there's sometimes things our doctors need to tell us that we don't want to hear, but we need to hear. And once we hear it, then we need guidance on how to go to the next step. We can't have the doctor, sugarcoating everything. Yeah, everything's fine. Everything's great. You don't need anything taken care of. It's the same thing with us. As professionals, we are not order takers. We're not yes people. We're not ticket counters. We are professionals helping them guide. So we can't sugarcoat. And I always ask with my buyers and sellers up front in the very first kind of conversations, I'm going to ask you for your permission to be honest with you when I need to be honest. Of course, when you're just signing a listing agreement or a buyer consultation, they're all going to say yes, but you've already set that tone that you are going to tell them what they need to hear. Doesn't mean you're going to direct them one way, but you are going to be honest with them.
Jan, I saw a comment come in. I think it's something relevant in this point. It says, I need to learn to listen before jumping in. And I think I have that big problem too. So like for me, I've got this analytic problem solver brain. Like I'm always trying to solve a problem. And believe me, I get in trouble with my wife sometimes the same way because I try to jump in and try to solve a problem when that wasn't necessary. Sometimes it was just meaning they were trying to tell you something and you didn't have to solve the problem. And I think that's where I fall in a boat a lot, is getting myself in trouble, is I try to over talk versus listening and then figure out what they really need to hear versus what I want to tell them. It's a different story.
And sometimes they just need to vent. And so then you can let them vent, but like you said, you don't have to always fix it. You don't have to always fix it.
So good.
So Calm Clarity, this particular program that I've created, is all about delivering truth with poise, purpose, and partnership with all the people in the transaction, because even you have to be in partnership with the other agent if there's another agent, because you are trying to help everybody come together, find a way forward that works for everybody, and get to the closing table. So poise, purpose, and partnership. So the core promise that this method will help you with is setting price expectations without conflict. Super, super important. Maintain trust through consistent, structured communication. Equally important, or more important, especially on the listing side in a shifting or worse yet softening market. It becomes super important to have that trust built through constant communication, so they understand if their property is not selling, or it's not selling for what they want, they understand that it's not you, it's the market. But if you don't have that consistent, structured communication, they will be blaming you, even if what you've been telling them is correct. And then what's going to happen is they're not going to stick with you, very likely, when the listing comes up for expiration, or if you need an extension or you need a price reduction, and then they're going to go list with somebody else, often at the price you suggested, and get sold. So that's why constant structured communication throughout the thing builds trust, so that they are really willing to listen to you, but not blame you on the outcome. That's super, super important.
That's really good.
Super important. It becomes, I call this incubating the seller. And in my view, seller incubation is one of the most important things that we do as listing agents, especially in a soft market on the list side. Super, super, super important for everything. This also helps us work only with committed sellers and not work with all these unrealistic, unmotivated, sometimes not nice sellers, because it helps us kind of flush all that out at the beginning,
Right.
so that we're not working with those people, because the impact that has on us, drains our bandwidth, drains our finances, drains our time,
Yeah.
but also drains us from having time to go out and seek better sellers who really are true sellers, right?
Good.
And it positions us as a trusted advisor, not just the messenger. Super, super important. So the framework is price alignment with the market, communication, a three-party partnership, and I talk about this a lot. There's the buyer, the seller, and the agent, and they all have different roles, and they all control certain things, but they don't control certain things. But sometimes they forget what they don't control. So I'm going to share with you how to have conversations with your buyers and sellers on that. A seller readiness market assessment. Sometimes I think we forget that sometimes sellers, they might want to be on the market, but they're not really ready mentally to be true sellers. And if we're just willing to willy-nilly take any seller that comes our way, we're going to end up listing with people who are not true sellers. And again, that drains our time, our money, our mental bandwidth, our emotions, our personal time, because we're thinking about the unhappy seller. But the unhappy
Yep.
seller is unhappy because the market is not meeting their unrealistic expectation of price, right?
And
So
sometimes, Danny, the biggest part I've seen is, when we have, let's say you're working multiple sellers at the same time, right? Or you have multiple listings going on. Those people can literally hurt your other deal because they're pulling your time, energy, money away. And I don't know, have you guys seen this? Like, if you've ever watched online, if you're watching this online right now, have you guys experienced that where you have literally been like, you're drained from one person, where you've got these other people behind you going, hey, I'm here, and it's a struggle sometimes to lose because honestly, it could pull your total focus away from everything and really hurt everything about your business because of somebody wasn't prepped right, or somebody wasn't, know the expectations right?
yeah. And it can really bleed into your personal life, both your relationship with yourself, as well as your relationship with your loved ones and your friends and everything like that. Then having a market reality conversation with the seller, so that especially if you are in a soft or softening market and you're taking on a new listing, to have a conversation to make sure they understand that the market they're actually in, not the market they want to be in, but the market they're actually in, and then how to kind of position yourself as that trusted advisor. So super important about price is making sure that you have conversations about price, you set expectations of what they can really expect, help set kind of metrics they should be paying attention to. And those metrics can be things like views, saves, in-person showings, things like that, so that they're already kind of keeping their eye out for the things that are giving signals that the price is in line with where it should be to lead to an actual sale. And then some dialogues and scripts that you guys can have. But price is, of course, the most important thing. The market responds to price, not hope. And I say that because how many times has a seller priced not at all based on the market, but what they want to get out of the house or what they've put in the house, not realizing that price is really set by the buyers who are in the market right now. End of story. They might not sell it, and then they've become the buyer for their own property, and that's a totally okay outcome, potentially, that they're not going to sell it past a certain point because it's not worth it for them to sell. That's okay, but they have to understand that there's a price that the market's just not going to respond to, and there's nothing you can do. You cannot outmarket the market, meaning you can't spend more money to try to generate a price that the market is just flat out not accepting. Buyer behavior tells the truth, and what I mean by that is we can see with everything that we have available to us online now as listing agents, we can see, is this getting a lot of use on Zillow or on homes.com or any specialty sites? If we're getting lots of traffic, we're doing our job as agents. If we're getting saves on that means there's people out there, sometimes hundreds of people out there, who love the property, but something isn't making sense between what they can see online, the price, and the location, meaning they're not willing, if you're getting a lot of views, if you're getting a lot of saves, but you're not getting actual in-person showings at the frequency and the rate you would expect, there's something that's a disconnect between price, location, and what they can see online. And it's important to explain that to the seller so that they understand, hey, I'm doing my job. We are getting the views, we are getting saves, but we're not getting the frequency of the showings we'd like to have, because sometimes the sellers don't even understand that. They think, oh, it's great, we're getting lots of views.
Right.
So sometimes you have to go the extra mile and explain, yes.
And a lot of those views are missed opportunities, right? That's the key. You're not going to see it again sometimes. Like a lot of pages, they see the property one time, and they won't see the price deduction. They won't see that. So you missed opportunity. And that's what you have to communicate to the sellers up front, that, the beginning is a really important opportunity.
Yeah, that's the hottest opportunity, because at that point you're like the belle of the ball. You're the little darling that's new and fresh on the market. So you don't want to waste that time, which is normally your hottest time. And it's important for them to understand, again, we control the marketing and the strategy between the listing agent and the seller, but we do not control the market. The buyer controls the market, because at the end of the day, it's only going to sell to a ready, willing, and able buyer. Super important. So I love to work with what I call data-backed pricing, really showing them not just the comps, but if there's differences in, this thing versus that thing. If, this one has a more linear feet on a river, or it's at this different condo tier, like condo line or something like that, or floor in a condo, different things like that. Data-backed pricing. And then I like to show them also, how many days have the comps been on the market, but also go back and look, were they on the market previously or at a different price? Did they expire and come back on the market? So they're seeing the whole picture, not just the little snapshot from the most recent price. And I explain to them all the time, the market is going to lead us. The market is going to show us how they're responding. We want to maximize what the market will bear, but we can't change what the highest the market will bear. And that's super, super important. So we have to be smart enough and with it enough to kind of be nimble and bob and weave and read those market signals quickly so that we can adjust when necessary. So, and I'm going to use some things that might be relevant in my market, might be very different in your market. We're aiming to price your home to get the most serious buyers in the door in the first 14 days. If we miss that risk window, we risk going stale. Your market, that might be the first 30 days. That might be the first 2 or 3 days. The way I figure this out is I look at, in my market or wherever the house is, for the same price point, I look at how many days did it take a home to go under contract. Yep. And if that's 30 days, if that's 60 days, if that's 90 days, if it's 180 days, I divide that into 3 sections of the listing term. And I say, hey, we have that first third, whatever that is. It could be 10 days, it could be 30 days, it could be 2 months. We have that first third to really kind of figure out and make sure that we're in the market. But if we get past that first third, then we definitely need to make some kind of adjustments. And I always say, I never say price drop. I never say reduce the price or anything like that. I always say change strategy or adjust our strategy, make a price improvement, however you want to change it. But you don't want to get past that second third of the average days on market without getting real serious about your price and your positioning. And I'm assuming your marketing is all on point. I'm assuming all your marketing.
Yes, right. You got all the work up front.
Right. Absolutely. But you don't want to get into that second, third, and you're almost getting to the point where you're exceeding the average days on market, because then you would have the kiss of death of being stale, where they think, what's wrong with it? Anything about that before I go into just kind of keeping the seller?
No, I think that's all stuff. I think that also you need to have, and this is my opinion, I do a whole class just on pre-marketing, but you should have a pre-marketing strategy. So, the listing doesn't start when you put it on the MLS, right? The marketing doesn't start then, it starts before that. There's a lot of pre-stuff you can do. And so you're setting those expectations up front for the sellers to be like, oh, okay, you're already doing a lot of stuff up front. You're already making it feel. And then obviously I think the big deal is you've got to have this conversation. I know many, many agents that don't have that conversation. Like they don't have it until it's stale. That's too late.
No, that's totally too late.
I mean, that doesn't work, but that's where, because we don't want to come in any negativity at all, right? That's where we're always like, oh, I don't want to say that. But I'm telling you, it builds a relationship so much stronger if you have that conversation at the beginning, even before it's listed, right? Expectations, set those up front, because you're going to have those people coming back going, oh, I remember they said that. Oh, I remember we were at that place now. And that's going to be, it's a total shift versus a negative shift. It's a positive shift because, oh, you already told me this is going to happen. And right. It helps the conversation go along.
Yeah. I mean, just imagine, let's say you had a property, any property, and that property, the seller wanted to price that property, let's say 10% over.
That's right.
Where anybody would think it could sell for. And you have two different agents just in your head. And you have a very seasoned, very successful agent here. And you have a relatively new green agent over here that maybe has very few listings. Imagine in your head, how would that agent be talking to the seller when they want to price it like that? And how would this agent over here be having a conversation? 100% this agent is going to be
different conversations
and just because they don't want to waste their time. They don't want to waste their money. And Helma asked a question down below that I think is a really good question. I get asked that all the time as people go into higher prices. She says, how do you recover your marketing costs when a seller pulls out all of a sudden? That's just part of business. When you do your business plan, all of us should have a business plan of how many listing appointments do we need to go on annually to meet our goal, with the expectation that we are going to list X percentage of those. We're certainly not going to list all of them, nor should we, because we also want to weed out the unmotivated, unrealistic, and not nice. And then from those listings, what percentage do we honestly expect to sell? In my market, the higher price listings, maybe only 60, 65% of those listings sell, even when you're doing a great job. Even when you're doing
that means you got to eat. You got to eat $2,000. You got.
But I don't consider it eating, Jeremy. I think it's marketing. Part of my. I've already factored that into my equations to get down to X, and Helma happens to be in some of my training, so I think you have access to the business planning session, or we actually have it in this YouTube channel as well. They can go back. But I've already pre-calculated in that X percent aren't going to sell. And so I don't stress about it because it's just part of my business expense. But if you're expecting that every listing is going to sell and it doesn't, that's when you're going to lose your mind and you're not going to be calm. So
but if you do it right, Janie, isn't it correct to say that money you spent on that listing will hopefully get other listings for you? Like,
not only help you get other, right. It'll help you get other listings. It'll help you get other buyers. It's kind of marketing for yourself as well, because now you have your sign out there, you have your ad out there, you have your social media, you've done your emails. So even if you don't sell it, I just had this conversation with a newer agent this week who had the opportunity to get a listing. He'd already had the listing appointment. They wanted to price it a little bit high. But they weren't going to sell it if it didn't sell below that price. But they were being honest with him. So they had a very open, honest conversation. And he said, well, what do I do, Janie? And I said, listen, you don't have a huge amount of listings. This is actually, for him, it was, I believe, his highest price listing. They've already been honest with you that they're not going to sell if they don't sell below this price. But there is a chance. It's not a crazy number. Market the heck out of it. That's so much exposure for you. That's exposure for you to show other sellers what you're doing, how you market. That's other opportunities to come in contact with other future sellers, other future buyers. So that kind of all falls into my big giant business plan. And for myself, I actually have a pretty low I think I have something like 60 or 65% of my listings I plan to actually get sold, not because I don't believe in myself, but I'd rather underestimate the percentage that I'm going to sell, so that I am very hyper conservative with my business planning, which forces me to go get more listings, more listing opportunities. And then my income can only go up from what I planned if I'm hyper conservative. People sometimes have a hard time understanding that math, but
it's also so much better to get a 20% bonus at the end of the year versus a 20%, oh crap, I've got to figure something out.
Yeah. So the next thing I think all of us should have is some kind of seller communication plan. Like, how are you going to communicate with the seller, and just them, especially if they're expired, an expired listing, just them to hear that you have a seller communication plan. They're like, wait, what? One of the big problems I had with my last agent is they never communicated with me. They never told me how a showing went. They never told me how the market was going. They didn't keep me up to date if a new listing came on the market or sold. So I would suggest have a kind of written blueprint of your seller communication plan. I'm going to give you market report updates once a month. I'm going to give you feedback on showings within 24 hours. I'm going to give you marketing updates on how I'm marketing your property and the feedback I'm getting, every 2 weeks. Whatever it is that you do, just set the tone.
And make sure that they, James, the biggest problem I have with most agents in their marketing, just like you're doing, they don't ask how you want to be communicated with. Right. Like, that's a huge one, because honestly, I can go back to many of my agents that's working with clients right now, look at their history of communicating, and all the emails have not been opened. Like they're sitting, like you could check on a lot of CRMs if they've opened emails or not. And I'm like, okay, did you not notice that because they're pissed off now because you didn't communicate, but did you not notice they didn't open any of your emails? That's a big red flag to me. So you should have went and said, hey, is text messaging a better way to do this? I'll send everything via text message. And then you just solved a relationship / communication problem.
No, that's super huge. Like, I personally, if I never had to talk to anybody on the phone, I would be very happy. Just text me. I'll answer you in text. Good. My sister, total opposite, wants everything on the phone. And that's how people are. It's kind of like those love languages. If you're not communicating with somebody in the way they want to be communicated with, you become an annoyance. Either an annoyance because they're feeling neglected, or an annoyance in something else. And then I go 2 steps deeper, Jeremy, for my seller communication plan. I ask them, do you want to get the Cliffs Notes or do you want to get the deep dive? Because I'm going to give them the information exactly as they like to take it in, because different people want different stuff. You could totally overwhelm one person with information, and the other one is going to feel neglected depending on what you send them. So I ask them that.
Good.
And then ideally, especially if you're in a very kind of longer marketing type environment or soft, I would be trying to have a monthly kind of recap, or every 2 months if you're in like a market that takes 12 months, say, to sell a house, where you are ideally meeting with them in person or meeting with them on Zoom and going over the market, the changes in the market, the marketing efforts you've been doing, the feedback, the shows, the views, so that they are completely feel like they are informed sellers. That's why I call it.
I love that you brought that up, because I literally met with one of my agents that I've been coaching for years, and they do higher end properties, mostly anywhere from 2.5 to 6 million is kind of like their average, and it's in a very affluent area. But they started doing 2 years ago, 30-day meetings with their clients on FaceTime or via Zoom, whatever they're more comfortable with.
Yep.
And it's been great he told me some feedback the other day. He was like, Jeremy, that to me has been like the opening statement, to be able to make changes to the listing, to be able to communicate, oh, hey, here's some feedback we've got so far. Let's talk through that a little bit. Like, it has been, and I was very impressed by it. He was like, I do it regularly now with all my clients. I think that's huge, because we live in this world where everybody's used to this. Okay, they're used to the FaceTime. They're used to the Zooms. They're used to, especially if they're in business at all, right? They're used to that kind of stuff. So that doesn't throw them off. It's a huge opportunity to be face-to-face virtually with somebody and see their emotions, see the face. It's different than being on the phone. It is different.
Yeah, absolutely. Build your system early so you already have something in place. There's a couple of different programs out there that will help you keep this seller updated. I would caution you not to rely just on automated updates. Don't
Yes.
just have things being sent, because information without explanation often means very, very little to a seller. For example, they're going to get a whole lot more views on Zillow or homes.com or realtor.com that they're going to get on, for example, Mansion Global. And because there's a different purpose of those sites. So information without explanation is not going to be great. So build your system early, meaning before you have a lot of listings. Share with them a seller communication plan, just a sample, like, hey, this is how I communicate. Does that work for you? Great. And then it just helps keep everything aligned with the expectations that you set earlier on about, hey, we're going to be expecting, for example, I know in my market, after about 10 to 12 showings, I should be expecting at least one offer. Yeah. I say that up front, so they kind of expect that. And if we're all of a sudden into 15, 16, 20 showings and no offer, that is a very clear sign that something actually at the property is not totally working for the buyers. Maybe it's lower ceilings, maybe it's, road noise, airplane noise, maybe it's the neighbors don't look great, but there's nothing that adjusts those things other than price. So just kind of setting those expectations up front. And like I said, always leading with data over opinion, so that they're not blaming you when things aren't working out great. I love spreadsheets and trackers. If you guys like spreadsheets and trackers, or like I said, there's other softwares, systems that can help you stay organized. But it's so important, especially as you go up in price point. Like I said, we are a 3-party partnership, and buyers agents, I love you guys, but your role is a little bit different. So when I'm talking about the 3-party partnership, I'm talking about the seller, the listing agent, and the buyer themselves, because everyone has a role. Success happens when all 3 do their part, but all 3 understand, again, everybody has a role, everybody has things they control, and everybody has things they don't control. The seller controls the overall pricing of what they're willing to sell for, what they're willing to work with. They control how the property itself looks physically. They control how accessible they make the property, but they don't control the market. The agent, the listing agent, they control the marketing, how they're getting it out there, how they're positioning it, how available they are to show, if it's an agent, a company type thing, or how easily they make it showable, how well they can negotiate. So they have their role, but again, they don't control the market. And then the buyer, their role is being a good buyer, being financially able to buy something. And then they really do control the price between all the buyers out there, the price, the highest the market will bear. And each one of them plays a role, but none of them hold all the cards, and none of them hold all the control of a situation. So I like to point that out all the time. We each have our own role in this. But there are certain things that we cannot change. We cannot change. And that becomes kind of important too. So another thing, like I said, seller readiness, so important to work with sellers who are truly ready to not just be on the market, but they're ready to actually sell. They're ready to accept what the market is telling us, even if it takes a little while working with them to get to that point. I'm not saying they have to just
be ready to sell whatever
they want and have a fire sale, but they're willing and open to understand the market is going to give us cues, and we need to adapt and bob and weave with those cues, again, so that we can sell for the highest the market will bear. But if you get the sense that somebody's really not ready for all of that, often there's emotional attachment. Often there might be unrealistic expectations. You have to yourself make a decision. Is this somebody I want to list with or not? Because if you have an unwilling seller to accept the market conditions and all of this, you're just you're setting everybody up for frustration. So be mindful.
Because I know some agents right now that they're making the conversation, they're getting it listed, but they never talked about, hey, if we get a offer at 5% below, is that acceptable? is that something you would entertain? Like, I would love to know that up front, because I want to communicate that to the person making the offer, the agent making the offer. Hey, here's the deal, bro. This is where we're going to be at. And obviously you have to present it to the seller and all that stuff for sure. But I think it'd be awesome for me. It'd be better for me to know kind of where they're at, where their mind is before we actually put it on the market, because you may know it's not going to go for that. You may just know it. And so it's easier to transition into that if you already know up front that this seller is really, I mean, they're a mover. They're ready to move this thing.
Yeah. I kind of think there's a couple different things that go into seller readiness. Emotional detachment is very, very important. Sometimes they don't come into the listing fully detached. Sometimes that's going to take time to work through, but that will help you determine on the readiness scale if they're truly ready. Motivation to sell. Are they truly motivated, or do they have that, well, I'm not in a rush, or, let's see what happens. I don't have to sell. That's pushing them down the seller readiness. Are they willing to act on your recommendations on price, on condition, on terms, all these things? So I subconsciously or to myself, put all sellers when I'm meeting with them on a readiness scale of 1 to 10. And I only want to list with sellers who are at like an 8, 9, or 10, maybe at a 7, 7.5. If they're honest with me about price, if I can tell they're not going to ride me expecting unwarranted expenses on my part to try to get them a price that I believe will not happen, or know that will not happen. And maybe there's something about the listing that also makes it advantageous for me to have it regardless. Maybe it's a prime property or on a main street or something. And they know we're all in agreement, me and the seller. Hey, it may or may not sell. I'm okay with it, seller. This is good. I'm going to give it my best. It's good for me to be out there anyway. Sellers like, Janie, I understand it might not sell. But as long as you're okay investing in marketing, like as long as we're on that, then maybe I will take a 7, but like a 6 below, no, I won't.
That's good.
Because I don't have the time, bandwidth, interest, emotions, or anything else. They don't deserve that from me. Not that there's something wrong with them as people, but I only have X amount of hours in the day, in the month, in the week. And so I have to be very guarded with who gets that bandwidth, that time, that emotion, that everything from me. So kind of your new standard you could think about if you're not quite there yet is we partner with committed sellers who want results, because again, you do need to protect your bandwidth, protect your brand, like you were saying before, Jeremy, protect your time, protect your finances. The market reality conversation, again, this might not be relevant to you if you're in a very hot market, but if you're in a softer market, I normally have conversation up front before we even sign the listing agreement. Here's where the market really is. Like, are you, do you know this? I want to make sure they're not in, 2020.
They're not living 5 years ago when
Right.
the market was crazy. And I literally helped an agent the other day, and they still expected this crazy thing. I'm like, that's not even close to where we're at.
Right.
I know this may be off topic, Jane, but I think it's important to mention is, when you're meeting with a seller, let's say they've got a spouse, right? You do want to make sure you're meeting both of them if you possibly can, because I have seen so many deals go sideways because I call it the silent seller. It's the person behind the scenes, behind the husband or wife. Though, let's say the husband's talking to you about the deal all the time, that the wife is behind you all making all the decisions, and so if they get a deal happen, I've seen it go sideways crazy. Because, my wife doesn't like that. Sorry, we're not going to do it. I'm like, I didn't get a chance to even talk to her. And I think that's it. I see it way too often in today's market. I don't know why, but I've seen it 3 times in the past year of things going sideways because I don't know. I always like to talk to everybody up front. I know that's probably way off base, but that's just where I'm at.
No, but that's the whole point of finding. I don't always insist that they're there at the first meeting. But I do make sure that they are on, like we have a conversation with
everybody's on board,
decision makers before we actually list. I also like to have the what's your plan B conversation. And what I mean by that is sellers often have this false understanding or belief that if they list their house, it's going to sell.
Yep.
If they list their house, it's going to sell at what they want it to sell for. And just by introducing what's the plan B if it doesn't sell,
That's so
can
good.
sometimes be enough to shake them into the understanding like, wow, well, I never thought about that.
Or wow, I don't want to go to plan B. I need to take plan A.
Exactly, exactly. And this happens a lot. This
Yeah.
happens a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. Jeremy and I talk to agents all
Oh
day,
gosh.
every day, and the amount of sellers who just
Way too many.
don't understand that there is a potential that the house might not sell. What's your plan B? Is it to rent it? Is it to hold it? Is it to stay and not move on if you had planned to move? And
And
just
that's
setting
not
that
just talking about
expectation up
price
front.
reductions. That's not just
Mhm.
talking about price reductions. That's talking about, hey, are you willing to put 2 grand in for some carpet or putting whatever like that? Sometimes that's a plan B. And
Right,
so we've seen that save deals,
right.
over whatever. So I think that just knowing there's other options, not just price reduction, there is some other options out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have this frequently in the term of a listing. It's super important. The next thing is, like I said, strategic truth telling, where you're the advisor, you're not the cheerleader. It doesn't mean you're like Nurse Ratchet or something like that, but
Right.
you are the advisor. You're giving them strategy to think about. We don't panic. We don't let them panic. If they are panicking, we let them kind of bring it down a minute and calm down. We also want to avoid wishful thinking, and we don't want to empower wishful thinking, because that's only setting people up for expectation that the market can't meet. And again, if the market's not meeting that expectation, they're not going to blame the market. They're going to blame the listing agent. So
So true.
that's why we just have to help them be grounded in everything that we're telling them. So positioning yourself as a trusted advisor, I spoke about that earlier. Just imagining yourself, you are an advisor, like a financial planner, a CPA, an attorney, a physician. You're not just a salesperson selling something like shoes or even a car. You're helping them make some very, excuse me, big decisions. And when they see you as an advisor versus a salesperson, they really change how they listen to you and how they're willing to take what you have to say to heart, because they understand their attorney is going to tell them what they need to hear, even if it's not what they want to hear, because the attorney wants the best outcome for them. And sometimes agents are uncomfortable doing that because they think, well, they won't like me then, or they won't keep me then, or they won't hire me then. Well, then, that's okay, right? We because we don't want to, we can't, again, we cannot change the market. We as agents cannot change the market. Sellers can't change the market. We can expose the property to the best market possible, meaning get it in front of the right targeted buyers and really position it well and sell the story and all of this. But there is a ceiling to what the market of ready, willing, and able buyers is willing to pay for any property, and we can't change that.
I love what Jenny put in the comments real quick, just because it does resonate. So something I've always said: are you wanting me to list your home, or do you want me to sell your home?
Right.
And it is a big difference. I love it. I love it. It's a great statement.
Yep, yep. So we're about to wrap up, and then we can take a few questions. So calm confidence equals trust, that the sellers build within, that they have trust with you. Sellers crave certainty. When you're calm and clear, you are leading with trust. You want to work with clients, at least I want to work with sellers
Right.
who respect my expertise, who are willing to price realistically. You can still price, a little with room, but you're pricing realistically, not completely aspirational that has no grounding in reality. I want to work with sellers who want to collaborate proactively and who ultimately want to get to the closing table, because until we're at the closing table, I'm just pouring my money, my time, my emotions, my bandwidth, my time with my family into that property and into that seller. So that's why, with all this positioning with ourselves, information with them, updating them, is helping me to make sure I'm working with sellers who respect all of that. So in summary, the calm clarity method helps you price for the market, helps you communicate with structure, helps you align all three parties, the seller, the listing agent, and the buyer, helps you assess the readiness of the seller to make sure they're really ready to be not just on the market, but in the market, helps you speak truth with compassion to your sellers, and helps you lead like the professional you are. So a few calm clarity tools that I'll shoot over to Jeremy that he can then include in the YouTube replay. We have a self-assessment guide for us. We have affirmations and manifestations for us. And this self-assessment is just like, am I approaching this conversation with calmness and not urgency? Have I clarified my role as a trusted advisor, not just a messenger? What outcome am I helping the seller achieve? For example, these are some of the self-assessment questions. I have a calm clarity manifestation for agents that I think is like, I created this for you. I'm a huge person about manifestations, but it says, I am the calm in the chaos. I am the voice of reason, truth, and care. I am a trusted guide, respected and prepared, deeply attuned to my client's highest good. I speak with clarity, act with integrity, and hold space for wise decisions. I am a blessing and a benefit to every seller I serve. My presence brings peace. My strategy brings results. I lead with strength, groundedness, and grace. I am the advisor that they didn't know they needed, and now they never want to go without. I embody calm clarity, and I carry it into every room that I enter. And in doing so, I create a business filled with ease, alignment, and the kind of clients who value and respect me. This is a win for them and for me. And imagine if you told yourself that daily. How much would that change how you thought about yourself, how you thought about everything in general, in the calmness that would kind of flow over into your sellers. So in kind of wrapping up everything, I really encourage you, the main thing, the easiest thing we can do for ourselves to make sure we're working with motivated, realistic, and nice sellers is simply to build a bigger funnel. Have more conversations with people, have more appointments with people, so that the listings we actually choose to list with, it's not just them picking us, it's us picking them as well, have a much higher chance of actually going under contract and selling. Once you build a big enough funnel with opportunities, you're going to open up everything so that you can get better and better and better quality sellers or buyers, if that's who you choose to work with. But that starts everything, because it totally changes you feeling that you're coming from a place of lack or scarcity, where you have to work with people because you don't have any other options, to I'm only going to work with the ready ones, the realistic ones, the nice ones who really are, prepared to actually get to the closing table. So,
and also you're going to be more happy with your business at the end of all this. Like, that's the whole goal. Like, you're going to be happy actually waking up. Because I've got to a place in businesses outside of real estate, beyond all this, before all this, where I hated going to work every day. I hated working. I didn't enjoy it. And so now obviously I'm in a place where I love what I do. And I think that if we as agents get to the place where you love what you want to do every day, not just say you love what you do, you know what I'm saying? You actually do love it. It's a big mindset shift. It changes everything. It changes your family life. It changes your work life. It changes everything. And so I think, what she shared and what I'm going to share with you guys in the YouTube comments, guys, those are going to be helpful, right? Those are going to be helpful to get your mindset right going into every single seller deal, because everybody's different. Every deal is different. And so I think having your prep up front, knowing what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, your plan up front, that's the game changing that I see completely shift every agent's business.
Right. Let's see. I'm checking.
All right. I love it. Welcome, Jenny. I think you first time call on the call. I love it. I'm glad you joined in. We do this every single month. The second Wednesday of every month. We're here hanging out. Jenny's always dropping fire knowledge, guys, to help drop into your business and improve your business and help move the needle. That's what we're all about. Like, honestly, if we did trainings and what we talked about didn't feel like move the needle for your business, we wouldn't be doing the training. That's just how it is. How Jenny and I both are, and all the stuff we do. Love it. Thank you guys so much for the feedback. More calm, clarity, less stress. Man, that'd be so good, wouldn't it? So good, guys.
And I will share with Jeremy the personal assessment as well as the manifestation, so he can put the link in the YouTube comments.
And I think we talked about this, is how do we find if a seller is a true seller? I think it really comes with the common sense, not just common sense, just the talking to them, having that communication with them. Because honestly, we have to not be how do I say it? Not be, I hate to say the word desperate, but we can't be desperate for something so much that we want to make it happen when we know it shouldn't have happened or they're not ready yet. I think that's the big deal. So I think that's great, guys. Thank you so much for dropping in, guys. Thanks for dropping your comments in and actually have a conversation with us during the session. It's always fun. We'll add everything in there. I'll grab stuff from Janie this week. I'll add it into the comments section of the YouTube video, and that way you guys can always reference it. If you need something, reach out anytime. Again, follow. I don't know if I've got. I think I've got them up here. Let me find it real quick. I thought I had all the social media stuff. Here it is. Show. If you ever want to, and make sure I did that right. If you ever want to follow Janie, she's always dropping content on her Instagram, as well as I believe she's on Facebook as well. But Instagram, her Instagram is Janie C. Just jump in and find that. You must have got that early, that's so cool because most people don't find their name and the last name in there. And then obviously, if you ever need anything from us, guys, follow me at Marketing Savvy Coach. I'm on all platforms as well. And our goal is honestly to bring you guys content that's going to move the needle for your business. We believe in you guys. We believe that you guys have what it takes to grow your business or whatever that cap is, whatever that ceiling is. And so we're going to keep dropping in every single week and bring more content. All right, Janie, thank you so much. It was an awesome session. Great content. Guys, appreciate you joining us. If you need anything from us,
Hellman Roger said some nice things too. Thank you, guys. We appreciate you.
All right, have a good one, guys. Be blessed and go sell some homes that you want to sell. See you guys.
Great. Thanks, Larry.